My husband and I, 27-year-old female, went to a festival this weekend in a town about a 4.5-hour drive away from where we live. We agreed in July that we would be staying at my dad and stepmother's place as we haven't seen them since last year. We drove down on Friday evening after work and got there at around 8:30 p.m., ate dinner, caught up with my dad, and basically went to sleep an hour after getting there as the festival started early and we needed to leave the house by 8 a.m. The arrangement, according to me, which my husband agreed to initially, was that we would meet up with his brother's family at the festival and spend the day there. When we got there at around 9, we walked around for maybe 20 minutes before my husband told me we needed to go fetch his brother. He did not tell me that we were going to go to them and walk around with them. I kept quiet about needing to go back to my dad, chatting with my sister-in-law for a while, but told my husband we needed to go back to my dad soon. This was around half an hour after getting together with his brother. He told me we would, but another half an hour passed. My husband and his brother just kept walking through the stalls, looking at the displays and ignoring us. I was starting to get irritated, but wasn't angry. When we finally got back to the place we left my dad at, it was probably an hour and a half after leaving them to fetch my brother and sister-in-law. I called my dad to find out where they were, and understandably they had moved on to look at other displays around the festival. I then told my dad and my husband that we would meet each other by the entrance displays in half an hour so that I could first get something to eat. My sister-in-law wasn't hungry, and my husband and his brother ate something when we met them earlier. I ultimately decided not to buy something as the lines for the food were too long, so I told my husband we needed to find my dad. This was over 2 hours after we had left them. But no, the baby was getting fussy, so no one could leave. We needed to find somewhere to sit so that he could eat. We went back into the main hall to find a seat, which took another 20 minutes because they had to look at the displays shown in the main hall. Okay, so we get to the seating area and we get coffee and the baby is eating. I again, maybe for the 4th time, reminded my husband we need to go back to my dad, but this time my sister-in-law heard me. The other times I pulled my husband aside so they didn't hear me saying we all needed to go, and she rolled her eyes. I couldn't believe it when I saw that, and I know my husband also saw, but didn't do anything. They then said that the main event was starting at 1. Mind you, we had left to fetch them at around 10, so this was about 3 hours of my dad and stepmother, who were hosting us for the weekend, being alone and me trying to get my husband to listen to me. I was angry at this point, and my husband saw, and he told me to just call my dad and tell him to come to us. I wasn't going to be telling my dad what to do. A person's child doesn't just tell them what to do in our culture. It's considered rude. I did tell my dad that the main event was starting soon and we could save them a seat if they wanted. The reply I got made it clear that he was unhappy that we left them alone for so long. But around 1:20 p.m., he called me to say they were at the main building and would join us. When they got there, my brother and sister-in-law greeted them quickly and went back to looking at the main event, which is fine. We were there to watch this event, but not long after, they, my husband, his brother, and sister-in-law just left. They didn't say where they were going or anything, they just left. At least at this point, I could spend time with my dad and stepmother. By the end of this event, we were sitting around a table, having lunch and talking. That's when my husband and them showed up and sat with us. Barely 5 minutes later, my brother-in-law walked away and my husband followed him. My dad, stepmother, sister-in-law, and I were left there for another hour or so before they came back. By that time, we had seen everything available at the festival and needed to leave to go shopping for dinner and to get home in time for the sports that were happening. Rugby is big in our culture. We said goodbye and then went our separate ways. We got to my dad's house just before 5 p.m. and immediately my husband disappeared into the bathroom without saying a word and stayed in there until the match was almost halfway through. I feel like he showed me that he doesn't respect my wishes and my relationship with my dad. I am building a better relationship with them, as a lot has happened in the last few years. And I do feel that if I don't at least apologize for missing half the day with them, I would be losing some of the progress I've made. I just want advice on how to apologize to my dad for his behavior, mine as well, as I'm not innocent in this. I didn't stand up for what I wanted to do. The whole reason why I feel like I need to apologize is because we live so far away and are still early in our careers. We barely make enough to live each month, so we never get to go visit. And my dad tries to visit every time he's in our town, but that happens every other month for an hour if I'm lucky. My husband's family is in town all the time visiting his mother. We see them at least once a month. So my question is, how must I approach this with my dad in order to apologize? And how do I tell my husband I'm unhappy with how everyone acted and that I won't go to a festival like this with him again because he loses all his respect for me when we are near things like this? Almost forgot, it's late at night and I'm still quite upset. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, maybe try, I'm sorry I didn't leave my husband and his family to spend the day with you. It was rude of me and I'm sorry. I'm also sorry my husband is so rude and I apologize for his behavior too. Comment 2, why didn't you just leave them to go find your dad? Yes, your husband is rude, but you could have hung out with your father while your husband followed his brother around all day. Now for the update. A few days after the festival, I called my dad to apologize for that whole disaster of a day. He was super understanding, but he mentioned that he felt pretty neglected during the festival. His words hurt a bit, but I had to deal with it. It was time to talk to my husband directly about how he acted. I asked him about all the times he just disappeared and how those moments affected my relationship with my dad. He brushed off my concerns, saying that I was overreacting. I mean, seriously? This was the man I married. We were supposed to be a team, not just me doing everything in a bad rom-com. This led to a tense argument where he accused me of being too attached to my dad. Like, excuse me? My dad and I have had a pretty rocky relationship in the past, and we were just starting to fix it. So yeah, I was going to be a little attached. A week later, my husband's brother invited us to a barbecue at his place. I agreed to go, hoping it would help fix things with my husband. Spoiler alert, it did not. At the barbecue, the atmosphere was awkward. My husband was practically a ghost. He was there, but not really there, you know? I caught him laughing with his brother, as if he had totally forgotten about me and our issues. Then, I overheard him making a joke about my attachment to my dad. It was like a knife to the gut. I confronted him about the joke right then and there, and he dismissed me again, saying I needed to lighten up. What was it going to take for him to get how serious this was? The next day, he texted me saying he was going out with his brother. So I decided to spend the evening with my dad instead. While I was at my dad's house, we sorted through some old boxes and found family photos. One photo caught my eye. It was my dad with my husband's father from years ago. I had no idea they even knew each other. That gave me an idea. I decided to pull together a small family gathering at my dad's for the upcoming holiday. I secretly invited my husband's parents, hoping to catch my husband off guard. On the day of the gathering, my husband showed up late, and you could see the annoyance written all over his face. But then his expression changed when he saw his parents there. The room was filled with tension as he realized I had planned this whole thing. It was a chaotic mix of awkward conversations and unresolved issues. I had planned a game where everyone could air their grievances in a light-hearted way. As the game went on, my husband's frustration spilled over, and he confronted me about what I had done. He accused me of trying to control his family dynamics. The evening ended with him storming off to the bathroom, isolating himself again. After a while, he came back, but the atmosphere had shifted. His parents were visibly upset. They confronted him about how he acted towards me. Finally, he snapped and demanded everyone leave. The gathering ended with his parents leaving and him feeling embarrassed. After that, I quietly packed my things and left with my dad. A few days later, I got a message from my husband, apologizing for his actions. I told him I'd be staying with my dad for a while. He kept reaching out, but I was staying distant. Eventually, he showed up at my dad's house to talk face to face. I opened the door, ready to deal with the situation head on. I'm still processing everything that went down. Seeing him in front of me, all sad and apologetic, made me feel a mix of anger, hurt, and just a little bit of love. But I know I can't let my emotions run the show right now. I really need to think about what I want and what I need. It's going to take time to figure everything out, and I might have to deal with some more stuff with my dad and my husband. So yeah, more updates to come, I guess. To answer a few questions, my husband and I have been married for over 2 years, and our relationship has had its ups and downs. We struggled with communication, which became evident during the festival. Prior to all this, we had discussed spending time with my dad and his family separately, which made his actions more disappointing. I believe he has a good relationship with his parents, but he never wanted to involve them in our issues. I don't know how his parents found out about the barbecue, but it was a surprise to him. I'm not sure what happens next, but I need time to think. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot? For finishing the fireplace my husband promised to complete over a year ago. My husband and I have been married for 8 years, together for 10. We have 3 young kids, a 6-year-old male, a 4-year-old female, and a 1-year-old female. He works in the trades, and I am returning to teaching in September after spending a few months recovering from the damage my previous job did to my mental health. I mention this because even though most of my days are good, I still have some moments where I ruminate on that trauma, and maybe what I'm feeling now has to do with that. I don't know. Over the past couple of days, I've been struggling to get through my day-to-day. I don't know if it's just been a couple of bad days or if I just need some alone time to recharge a bit while taking care of the kids, or if I'm just going stir-crazy from looking at the same 4 walls. My husband is a great husband and father. He is very hands-on with the kids when he is home, and the shared chores are usually split pretty evenly. But he has a couple of flaws that are grating on me. The first is that he is so helpful to everyone. He would drop everything to help others, which is great, but it usually happens at my expense. I can't even count the number of times weekends have passed with me and the kids sitting on the sidelines while he plays the white knight for someone else. Because he is handy, both of our families and friends have projects that they want him to do, and he will do them. Meanwhile, we have enough projects of our own. We are missing trim in rooms, the basement is unfinished, a window needs replacing in our bedroom, and so on. This leads into the second flaw, his inability to finish anything for us. I'm stuck looking at a house with projects started but unfinished. My living room fireplace is a prime example of how these flaws hurt me. When we first bought the house 2 years ago, he promised me that the first thing he would do is build me a fireplace wall with built-in shelves. It's been sitting partially finished for at least a year. Meanwhile, I had to watch him finish a similar project for his sister in 3 weeks. I understand that she was paying him for it, but it still hurt seeing her beautiful living room while mine is in disarray. There are other examples, of course, like the whole fiasco with our ensuite half bath. I had wanted it done before the birth of our 3rd child. He instead helped the neighbor drywall his living room, and my bathroom was completed 4 months later. It was so much fun sleeping in a construction zone with my newborn. Right now, he is off helping my dad with a project. I'm at home, looking at the unfinished fireplace and feeling unfulfilled. I have some rudimentary do-it-yourself skills, but with 3 children underfoot, it's not a project I can undertake right now. On top of that, I'm also busy trying to prepare for the school year, but it's hard finding uninterrupted time for that either. Right now, the kids are having a rare moment where they are not squabbling, but they still demand attention, which I barely have the bandwidth to give. And as kids are, I clean one room and the next looks like a tornado. And someone always needs something. I just feel defeated and stuck. And I resent my husband for getting to leave the house and actually do something worthwhile while I'm stuck here with nothing to show for it. I resent my dad because he is getting his projects done while I stare at unfinished things around the house. I just want someone to take the kids so I can get things done and feel like I can accomplish something. But it seems that even though we live steps away from both sets of grandparents, they are too busy to even offer. And if I ask, I get the "we'd love to, but" response. I desperately need a break, and I need my husband to care or show that he cares. But when I've talked to him about the projects, he claims he needs time or money, to which I have asked him to give me a quote on what he needs to finish these so we can budget, and he doesn't. Now it's become a running joke with our mutual friends and family. I'm just so frustrated because he is so good in every other aspect, but I just feel like I'm only a priority if everyone else is fine first, and they are never fine. Is it just me being in a funk? Am I reading too much into this? Or is there a way I can communicate this in another way? I feel like I don't matter. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He's using the excuse of helping everyone else as his social or fun time, leaving you to deal with the unfun parts of family life. Also, are these other people paying him? If so, that money should be going to finish your work. Maybe tell your dad and other relatives that the handyman service is closed until further notice. Comment 2. He may appear really helpful to others, but to his partner, he starves. He has his priorities upside down. I think it is a personal issue. He needs some counseling and boundaries. Tell him to stop helping everyone else but his partner. It would almost be better to be his friend. You would get more care. Now for the update. 1 week later, and I'm still just as frustrated about my husband's unfinished projects and lack of attention to home life. Honestly, I don't even have the energy to go into the details again. It's been a rough few weeks, and I'm just going to try to get through this as best I can. Decided to tackle some small tasks around the house to feel a sense of accomplishment. Basically, I was just trying to do something that would make me feel better. So, I cleaned out a closet and found boxes of old toys and clothes that could be donated. While sorting through all that stuff, I discovered a half-finished scrapbook my husband started years ago, intended for our kids. It was sweet and all, but also just another reminder of how he's always got time to do stuff for everyone else, but never gets around to doing it for our family. Anyway, he agreed to help me with the kids for the day, promising to work on the fireplace project later. I thought maybe that would be the push he needed to actually get it done. But of course, he ended up getting a last-minute call from a friend who needed help with a home repair, leaving me alone again. So there I was, juggling the kids while cleaning and organizing the house, wishing for some actual teamwork and not just empty promises about helping out. At dinner, I brought up how the fireplace project is still unfinished. He brushed it off, saying he'll get to it when he has time, making it sound like a joke. Like, seriously? Your wife's been waiting 1.5 years, and that's your response? The kids were excited about the scrapbook, and he seemed annoyed that I wasn't engaging with him. He tried to change the subject, but I kept working on the scrapbook while the kids cheered me on. It was just one of those moments where I felt like I was doing something meaningful for our family, while he was just being a distraction. During dinner, he casually mentions that his sister is having a birthday party next weekend and expects him to help with the decorations. Of course she does. The next day I decided to take the kids to the birthday party to show my support. At the party, I noticed my husband was busy organizing the decorations and chatting with family. One of his relatives jokingly asked why he hasn't finished the fireplace yet, drawing attention to the issue. He just laughed it off, which honestly made me feel even more frustrated. Like, he thinks it's funny that he's neglected this project for over 1 year? After the party, I confronted him in the car, asking why he seems to care more about his sister than our family. He claimed I was overreacting and that he'll get to our projects when he can. This led to a heated argument where he accused me of not being supportive of his family. Back at home, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew I couldn't wait on him anymore. So I made a plan to finish the fireplace myself and gathered supplies from a local store. I spent the next few days working on the fireplace late at night after the kids were asleep. He noticed the supplies piled up but didn't ask what I was doing. On the weekend, I revealed the nearly completed fireplace to him, showing him what I accomplished. He was taken aback, and I told him I couldn't wait for him anymore. That was when our argument resurfaced. He accused me of undermining him, and I countered by saying I was done waiting for his help. It was time for both of us to take responsibility. The argument escalated, and he stormed out, saying he was going to help his sister with her home project. I finished the fireplace that night. The next day, I decided to invite my in-laws over to see the finished fireplace, making it a point to showcase my work. During the visit, my husband seemed embarrassed and tried to downplay my effort. The in-laws praised me, and it made him uncomfortable. The evening ended with him sulking. The unresolved tension lingers as I prepare for our next family gathering. Mini update: the family gathering was a disaster. My husband was in a terrible mood all evening, and our argument from the previous week kept coming up. He told his family that I did the fireplace project behind his back, and they sided with him, asking why I couldn't wait for him. I felt ganged up on, but I stood my ground, saying I was tired of waiting on him for everything. After the gathering, I told him I was done fighting about this.